the good news is that actually our method is going to stay exactly the same. The first thing we do is get the lowest common denominator. So my denominator, lowest common denominator of 3 and 4 is 12. What do I do to 3 to get to 12? So I'm going to multiply that by 4. So then I'm going to multiply the top line by 4 as well. The 4 on the bottom here, I'm going to multiply by the 3 to get to 12. And I'm going to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. So I found my lowest common denominator. I've now made equivalent fractions with that lowest common denominator. I now combine. So my denominator is 12 and I'm combining 2x times 4. And it doesn't matter if you wrote that 4 before or after. Remember, multiplication is commutative. Order doesn't matter. Then we have a plus, and then there's a 1x times 3. So when I tidy that up, we get 2x by 4 is 8x, plus 1x by 3 is 3x, all over 12. And now we're going to tidy up the numerator a bit more. So that's 11x over 12. And that's our answer. So the exact same method will work now that we have an algebraic expression as part of the numerator. Okay? So now let's look at a second example, and this one is a subtraction. So 3x over 5, take away 1x over 2. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to identify my lowest common denominator. It's 5 and 2, so my lowest common denominator is 10. So my first fraction, to get to 10, I'm going to multiply the bottom by 2, the denominator by 2, and the numerator by 2. In the second fraction, I'm going to multiply my denominator by 5 and the numerator by 5. So then I have a common denominator of 10, and I combine my fraction. So I get 3x times 2. Watch your signs, it's a subtract this time, and a 1x times 5. It's really important that you do this combining of the fractions before you do any tidy up, because as these fractions get harder, you'll have to do that bit first or you'll get the wrong answer. Here, it's not going to make too much of a difference, but it's always better to have one method that works all the time than trying to remember all the different times where you have to do this or have to do that. Always do lowest common denominator. Then with the denominators, we want to get equivalent fractions with that denominator. Then we combine. Now we clean up our numerator. So 3x by 2x is 6x. 1x by 5 is 5x, but it's minus 5x all over 10. And that leaves me 1x over 10 or x over 10. Either answer, absolutely perfect. So now we're going to look at just some more fractions. And these are ones that have some algebra in the numerator. So I'm going to give you formally the 4 steps we're going to use. Because what we did yesterday, we were really just, looking at how we would add number fractions or how we subtract number fractions, and then using that same method for algebra fractions. So make sure this gets taken down into your copy. These are the 4 steps that you're required to do as you work through any question. And I talked about them yesterday, but now I'm giving them to you. First thing you do is you identify the lowest common denominator. The second thing you do is you rewrite or update each fraction to have that lowest common denominator. So we're using equivalent fractions. You then want to combine the fractions, so combine it into a single fraction, and then you simplify the numerator. So let's take a look. Okay, so we have 3x minus 4 over 9 plus 4x minus 5 over 3. Step 1, lowest common denominator. So the lowest common denominator of 9 and 3 is actually 9. So 9 doesn't need to be changed. 3, I'm going to multiply it by 3, but the numerator also has to be multiplied by 3. Now remember, order doesn't matter with multiplication, but it's often easier to write the single number first. Common denominator is 9. So we're going to update each fraction to have the lowest common denominator. Done. Now we're going to combine. So we have 3x minus 4 plus. Now I'm going to put my 3 and then 4x minus 5, just because it's easier for multiplication. It does not matter. Remember, Multiplication is commutative, order doesn't matter. So now we're going to simplify the numerator. So 3x minus 4 plus 12x minus 15 all over 9. Oh, I dropped my x. And when I tidy that up, I get 15x minus 19 all over 9. And that's my final answer. So now the only difference is we have two terms in each of the numerators rather than just that single term we dealt with yesterday. Now we have a subtraction, and this is where these steps become really important, and I'll explain why. So first thing we're going to do, let's find the lowest common denominator of 3 and 5, and that is 15. So here I'm going to multiply the denominator by 5 and the numerator by 5. Here the denominator by 3 and the numerator by 3. And now we have a common denominator of 15, and we have 5 times 2x minus 1. Be careful with your signs, this is a subtraction. Then I have 3 times 4x plus 2. So what will happen in a lot of cases if you don't combine, if you multiply and then combine, is that what I'll see is students will only make the 4x or the 12x as it will become negative. That minus has to affect the 4x and the 2, both pieces of the numerator of the second fraction. So by combining it before doing any multiplication or cleanup, it will make sure that you do it correctly. So we have 10x minus 5 minus 12x minus 6. Okay, so if we didn't have our steps, I could nearly guarantee that that minus 6 would end up being a plus 6. So we have minus 2x minus 11 all over 15. So nothing is different. Although this will be a trickier sum and a lot of students will get it wrong, the method we have hasn't changed. We're doing exactly what we were doing when we started with our number fractions yesterday. Nothing is different. So actually having that one method that works all the time just makes your life so much easier. Please make sure you are following those steps. Now, I have given you 3 fractions. Ooh, let's see how we do with this. So the lowest common denominator of 4, 10 and 5. So it's going to be a little bit trickier to go through. So go through what you think. 20. 20 would be our lowest common denominator. So 4 by 5 will give me 20 and 5 in the numerator. 10 by 2 will give me 20 and 2 in the numerator. 5 by 4 will give me 20 and 4 in the numerator. So now I can clearly see that change. It saves me writing out a step. Remember, I'm super lazy. So I've now updated each of my fractions to have the lowest common denominator. That lowest common denominator is 20. I then have 5 times 3x minus 1. Watch your signs. Minus 2 times x. Again, watch your signs. Minus 4 times 4x plus 2. I write that all out. I don't do any part of it in my head until that's combined, and now I do my cleanup. 15x minus 5 minus 2x minus 16x minus 8 all over 20, and that gives us minus 3x minus 13 all over 20. But before I do that, let's do a little bit of work with our lowest common denominator, which is also lowest common multiples. So if I said to you, what's the lowest common multiple of 3 and 4? The answer is 12. And the lowest common multiple of 5 and 80, it is 40. And if we were able to have this as a conversation, I'd be asking you, what do you notice? So you may have seen this over the last few classes, but actually 12 is simply 3 by 4 and 40 is simply 5 by 8. So what do you notice? Well, actually, the lowest common multiple or lowest common denominator is just the two numbers multiplied together. Do you think this will always be the case? Do you think this will always work? So is this something that sometimes works, always works? Well, what about the lowest common multiple of 10 and 5? It is 5. It is 10. So that means, should it not be 5 by 10 being 50 by the logic we had in the last slide? So, okay, it's not always going to be the case. Why? Why do you think that, I'll do it as lowest common denominator, 3 and 4 is 12, which is just literally 3 by 4, so I'll write it by 3 by 4. Why is that 3 by 4? And why is the lowest common denominator of 5 and 10 just 10? Not 5 by 10. I wonder. Well, the reason is, maybe you've spotted it, that 5 and 10 have common factors. They share a common factor of 5. So when there is common factors, this idea doesn't actually work. So it's not possible for us to get the lowest common multiple or denominator by simply multiplying it. However, do you want the good news? Best about what I was working on. In the majority of cases, to find the lowest common denominator or lowest common multiple, you just multiply the numbers together. It doesn't work if the numbers have a common factor. When we deal with algebraic fractions, and this is the good news, with algebra terms in the denominator, we can use this trick to find the lowest common denominator the majority of the time. And for junior cycle, all of the time, okay? So we're not going to panic beyond this now. Example 1. We're going to first find the lowest common denominator of 5 minus x and x plus 2. And that's simply going to be the two denominators multiplied together. And we're not even going to multiply it out because it's going to make it a lot easier if we don't. So taking a look, I'm going to rewrite our sum with a bit of space. So 5 minus x, and then I'm going to give some space, plus 2 over x plus 2. And I'm going to do what we've always done. We look at the common denominator and I ask myself, what do I need to multiply 5 minus x by to get to this lowest common denominator? And the thing that it doesn't have is an x plus 2. And that's why we don't multiply it out up there. We leave it in factored form. If I do an x plus 2 at the bottom, I also have to do it at the top. Then the second fraction, I have an x plus 2 at the bottom, so what I need to multiply it by is 5 minus x. And if I multiply that by the bottom, I multiply it on the top. Now remember, we combine. So my lowest common denominator is going to be 5 minus x times x plus 2. We will need to multiply it out, but we'll leave that till the end. We're combining, so we have 6 times x plus 2 plus 2 times 5 minus x. And now we simplify the numerator. So we get 6x plus 12 plus 10 minus 2x. If you prefer, you can do the multiplication for the bottom line. You can do that to the side. I'm going to just leave it for 1 minute, x plus 2. And I'm going to simplify the top. And I get 4x plus 22 all over 5 minus x times x plus 2. So then if you want to go multiply out that bottom line, I'm going to do it up here. Bottom line, remember to label it. So I'm going to just bring it up here to do that. 5 minus x times x plus 2. Split the brackets. 5 times x plus 2 minus x times x plus 2. That gives us 5x plus 10 minus x squared minus 2x. So that will give me 10 plus 3x minus x squared. So my final answer is 4x plus 22 all over 10 plus 3x minus x squared. Now we would generally write the x squared, then the x, then the number, but I would have mentioned this so many times. We try not to start any algebraic expression with a minus because it's too easy to get lost. So we've just rejigged it so that that minus is in the middle rather than at the front. If you have them in a different order, that is absolutely perfect. Now, let's try another one. This is the same idea, but we have a subtraction. So the lowest common denominator of 2x minus 5 and 3x minus 2 is simply the two denominators multiplied together. I wouldn't multiply it out at this point. I leave that till the very last, but if you want to, that's fine. I'm going to need a bit of space. These particular questions need a little bit more space than we've been given, and that's okay. So the denominator on the first fraction is 2x minus 5, so it needs to be multiplied by a 3x minus 2. And the top needs to be multiplied by a 3x minus 2. The second fraction, we have a 3x minus 2, so that is multiplied by a 2x minus 5. The top then also needs to be multiplied by a 2x minus 5. Now we need to combine the fractions, so it's 10 times 3x minus 2 minus 2 times 2x minus 5 all over our common denominator, which is 2x minus 5 times 3x minus 2. I'm going to clean up my numerator first. So we get 30x minus 20 minus 4x plus 10, and that's all over 2x minus 5, 3x minus 2. Tidying that top line up even more, we get 26x minus 10 is all over 2x minus 5 times 3x minus 2. Now I'm going to take that bottom line and I'm going to work up here and I'm going to multiply it out. So anything long I try not to do in the fraction, it just takes up too much space. 3x minus 2. So we have 2x times 3x minus 2 minus 5 times 3x minus 2. So that's 6x squared minus 4x minus 15x plus 10, which is 6x squared minus 19x plus 10. So this is 26x minus 10 all over 6x squared. Oh, I have an extra squared in here. That shouldn't be there. Just minus 19x plus 10. And that's our final answer. So our method is exactly the same. It will be a little bit more complicated because now we have algebra in the top and in the bottom. We have a lot more to do. We're now multiplying out two brackets as well as that simplifying that we've had before.